How's it going, everybody? Welcome to We Do Tech. Now, in our previous video, we took a look at the ASUS TUF RX5700 XT, AMD's current top-of-the-range GPU for now. However, we're going to take it a step down a bit today and take a look at the ASUS TUF RX5600 XT, which is more affordable and takes on some of the Nvidia cards like the RTX 2060, and of course the 20 Supers are out, but this one still delivers pretty good performance, especially for the price point. We're going to also compare it to that previous RX 5700 XT and some of the other Nvidia cards that I've reviewed as well. So let's get into the review. Starting off with pricing, the ASUS TUF RX5600 XT is currently retailing for around $320 on Amazon or around 9,300 Rand on Dreamer Tech here in South Africa. The RX5600 XT is currently AMD's third top-of-the-range GPU and was developed to take on Nvidia's RTX 2060 cards. But of course, with Nvidia bringing out their super range and pretty much cancelling out the standard cards, it kind of left AMD a step behind again. However, there are some good news for AMD because the 5600 XT is quite a bit cheaper than the RTX 2060 super cards currently, being around $80 to $120 cheaper. Now, the RTX 2060 Super is a bit faster, but it's also more expensive. So the question is, should you spend more and get a bit more performance out, or do you rather want to spend quite a bit less and still get pretty decent performance out? Well, let's find out in this video. But before we get into all of the performance and all the good stuff, let's quickly take a look at the card first. The design of the card is a lot more toned down compared to their Strix models, but I do still like it with this two-toned gray color scheme, some RGB on the side, and also a nice backplate. The card is also pretty thick, taking up 2.5 PCI Express slots with its 3-fan layout, but also with the middle one being a bit smaller than the other two. But don't worry, it doesn't really affect cooling that much. Now, as for the I/O, you do get a 3 DisplayPort 1.4s and a single HDMI 2.0B port for your connectivity. For power, the 5600 XT has a single 8-pin power connection that draws a max of 220 watts from my testing, also with my overclock applied, so a 500 watt power supply will be recommended for this card. Specs wise, the TUF 5600 XT has 6 gigs of GDDR6 memory running up to 14 gigabits per second with 2304 stream processors. It is also a PCI Express 4.0 graphics card, although that doesn't really mean much in GPUs now. We're not really at that performance yet where that actually makes a difference, but hopefully we will soon. Now, even though this is already an OC edition card, I was able to increase my core clock to 1820 MHz and memory to 1860 MHz for a nice little boost in performance. However, if you're not into all of the overclocking and fiddling around with the card, if you're maybe a bit scared, you can also use ASUS's tweak tool that does have some pre-installed overclocking options that you can just one-click apply, and it'll be able to get you some nice little performance there as well without needing really to do anything. Now, just quickly for cooling, again, like I mentioned before, that smaller middle fan doesn't really affect the cooling that much, with the card only reaching a max of 70 degrees at 50% of fan speed or around 2,500 RPM, which also isn't too loud in my open test bench that I used. Now, just before we get into the benchmarks, something that I just want to mention as well is that some of these GPUs that is compared against was reviewed a while back. I unfortunately do not own them, so there might have been some updates towards games or drivers that might increase performance. However, that shouldn't really be that much, if any, honestly. And I did also compare it against that 5700 XT Strix from ASUS as well, just guys to compare it to that, and then also a few other ones as well. So with that, let's take a look at how the ASUS TUF 5700 XT performs alongside some of the other cards in various type of games and resolutions. So from the benchmarks, we can see that the ASUS TUF 5600 XT does beat out the RTX 2060, which again was its main competition. But unfortunately, I didn't have any of the super cards to compare it to, but I did have that RTX 2070, which is pretty much a tiny bit more powerful than the RTX 2060 Super. So that's going to be a nice graph to compare it to, and it didn't really do that bad. Now I also compared it to that 5700 XT, which is also a step above the 2070. So compared to that as well, it's actually doing pretty good, especially for that price point. So if you were wondering how the 5600 XT is going to perform against the new 2060 Super cards, unfortunately it won't be able to beat those. But again, at the price point, it actually does really well, being just below the 2060 Super, but also beating out the standard 2060, which I will say price to performance wise, that is actually a much better option to go for. Again, depending on what you go for, $80 to $120 currently at the time of filming this review. That's quite a big difference. Again, $320 for the ASUS TUF compared to like more than $400 for the Nvidia RTX 2060 Super. So definitely not a bad option. So that's pretty much it for my review of the ASUS TUF RX 5600 XT. Actually a pretty good card for the price, taking on some of the Nvidia cards as well. Again, it's just going to depend up to if you want ray tracing or not. It's up to you. Currently ray tracing isn't that big of a deal really. It impacts performance just a bit too much, so I'd rather maybe go for something like this with a bit more horsepower under the hood. So yeah, you do have a nice option here. Big thanks to ASUS of Africa for sending the card over for review. If you guys want to get one of these for yourself, I will leave links in the video description as well as some of the other cards if you want to get that. But again, big thanks to ASUS of Africa for sending this card over. If you guys enjoyed this review, please like, share, subscribe, and comment like always. And then I will check all of you next time. Cheers, guys.